I am attorney Marie-Chris Bathan Lasco. This is my virtual classroom. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this channel, I shall aim to simplify the law. I shall discuss concepts and principles of law in under 10 minutes. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to our virtual classroom. For this video, I want to talk about Section 5 and 6 of the Revised Corporation Code. What is in Section 5 and what is in Section 6? Section 5 and Section 6 will now introduce you to terms that are important in understanding your Revised Corporation Code. So let's talk about these terms one by one. So let's look at Section 5. Section 5 now will introduce you to 4 terms. What are these terms? You have corporators, you have incorporators, you have stockholders, and members. So what do we mean by these terms? Who do we refer to when we say you are a corporator, or you are an incorporator, or you are a stockholder, or you are a member? When we talk about corporators or a corporator, this refers to either members in a non-stock corporation or stockholders of a stock corporation. This can even refer to incorporators of your corporation. What does that tell you? It tells you then that the term corporator is a very broad term, and this term refers to all those who compose the corporation. Again, be it members in a non-stock corporation or be it stockholders in a stock corporation. How about the term incorporator or incorporators? They refer to the original corporators. They are those who are named in the Articles of Incorporation as those originally forming the corporation. So that's the difference between your incorporator and corporator. In incorporator, they are the original corporators. The corporator, the term corporator, would now refer to all the members or stockholders, whether they are the original formers of the corporation or they are stockholders who bought their shares into to have a shareholding rather in the corporation, or if they are new members in a non-stock corporation. The term stockholders, I have mentioned this earlier, this refers to those who compose a stock corporation. Okay? Your stockholders may be natural persons or juridical persons, because corporations or partnerships can in fact buy shares in a stock corporation. They can buy shares of stock so that they have shareholdings now in the stock corporation. How about the term members? Members now refer to the corporators of a non-stock corporation. You do not call them stockholders because there are no stocks that are being divided and distributed to the owners. They are called members. So these are the important terms that we also have to learn, and these are the terms that are introduced to us on in Section 5 rather of your Revised Corporation Code. Now, there are other classes of people who help form the corporation, although not stated or given in Section 5. We have your promoters, you have your subscribers, and you have your underwriters. Now, who are the promoters? The promoters are those who bring about the formation and organization of the corporation by bringing together the incorporators of the corporation. They are not necessarily the incorporators, they are not necessarily stockholders, but they're the ones who bring about the formation of the corporation. They just bring together these people who might want to form a particular corporation. How about subscribers? Subscribers are those people who promise to purchase shares, unissued shares of the corporation. Do we consider them as stockholders? Technically, not yet, because you become a stockholder only when you have already fully paid for your share. So if you have just promised to purchase the unissued shares of the corporation, you are still called a subscriber, not a stockholder yet. It's only when you pay for these shares that you become a stockholder. How about an underwriter? An underwriter is usually an investment banker who has agreed to purchase an entire issue of shares or a substantial portion of such issued shares. Or perhaps he has promised to market those shares. So that is what an underwriter is. Now let's talk about Section 6 of your revised corporation code. It now introduces you to the concept of shares of stock. Now remember, having shares of stock, that would mean that the corporation is a stock corporation. Now, what are shares of stock? A share of stock represents the interest of a shareholder in a corporation. It is a unit in the capital stock of the corporation. And what is the importance of this share of stock? As we said, it represents the interest of the shareholder. Because then your share of stock will now become the basis for your participation in the corporation in terms of your right to vote. It will also become the basis for your share in the dividends should the corporation through the board of directors declare dividends. It also rather becomes the basis of your share in the assets of the corporation if there are any left after liquidation of a corporation. Having discussed what a share of stock is, can the corporation issue several classes of shares? The answer is yes. Now you might ask, what do you mean by different classes of shares? Your shares may also be issued and classified depending on the rights that would attach to such shares. And that is what Section 6 is actually talking about. Now, let's go over Section 6. The first paragraph of Section 6 says, the classification of shares, their corresponding rights, privilege, or restrictions, and their stated par value, if any, must be indicated in the articles of incorporation. Each share shall be equal in all respects to every other share except otherwise in the articles of incorporation and in the certificate of stock. Now let's study that first paragraph of Section 6. What does that tell you? It basically tells you that your corporation has the power to classify their shares. They can issue several classes of shares, and that the privileges, the rights of each share must be indicated in the articles of incorporation. In that paragraph also, it will tell you of the principle that all shares are presumed equal unless otherwise stated. And that is why it is important for the incorporators, when they form the corporation, when they make the articles of incorporation, that they specify the privilege or the right of each classification of share. Now let's go over the second paragraph of Section 6. It says, the shares in stock corporations may be divided into classes or series of shares or both. No share may be deprived of voting rights, except those classified and issued as preferred or redeemable shares, unless otherwise provided in this code. Provided that there shall always be a class or series of shares with complete voting rights. What do we mean by the second paragraph of Section 6? It tells you that the shares of stock that is issued by the corporation must have complete voting rights, except those shares that are classified as preferred shares or redeemable shares. In other words, as a general rule, when the corporation issues shares or series or classifies series of shares, all of these shares must have complete voting rights, except when they are preferred shares or redeemable shares. I will talk about what preferred shares are and what redeemable shares are in another video. Let's talk about just the general rule here. So again, your corporation has the power to classify several series of shares, but the corporation must put to mind that all those shares must have complete voting rights, except for preferred shares or redeemable shares. Now you might ask, what are these voting rights? What will the stockholder vote on anyway? Remember that a stockholder having a share in the corporation, they're actually part owners of the corporation. And being so, they must have a say in the direction of the corporation. And so if there are matters that would need to be voted on, like if this corporation will make an investment in a certain business, then a vote can be called upon to determine whether the stockholders would be amenable to it. Another matter that the stockholders would be voting on would be the membership also of the board of directors. Of course, they must have a say as to the leadership in the corporation. So these are just some matters that may be put up for a vote. So that, again, of course, the stockholders, being part owners of the corporation, can have a say in the direction of the corporation. Now let's move on to the third paragraph of Section 6. What does it say? It says, holders of non-voting shares shall nevertheless be entitled to vote on the following matters: amendment of the Articles of Incorporation, adoption and amendment of bylaws, sale, lease, exchange, mortgage, pledge, or other disposition of all or substantially all of the corporate property, incurring, creating, or increasing bonded indebtedness, increase or decrease of authorized capital stock, merger or consolidation of the corporation with another corporation or other corporation, investment of corporate funds in another corporation or business in accordance with this code, and dissolution of the corporation. The third paragraph tells you that even if your share is a non-voting share, like if it's a preferred share, or any other share to which there are no voting privileges, that paragraph tells you that there are still matters that even non-voting shares can vote on. And what are these matters? Those matters enumerated under your third paragraph of Section 6. For other corporate acts, however, where the corporation would ask the stockholders to vote, again, excluding those that are rather enumerated in the third paragraph of Section 6, they would refer only to shares with voting rights, because those enumerated under the third paragraph of Section 6 will also enable the non-voting shares to also vote on these matters. Now let's move on to the next paragraph. Section 6 is quite long. So what does the next paragraph say? It says, the shares or series of shares may or may not have a par value, provided that banks, trust, insurance, and pre-need companies, public utilities, building and loan associations, and other corporations authorized to obtain or access funds from the public, whether publicly listed or not, shall not be issued to issue no par value shares of stock. So this paragraph now introduces you to another term, and such is par value. What do we mean by par value? A par value of a share is that specific money value that is fixed for that particular share, and that is written or stated in your articles of incorporation and in the certificate of stock. Now, you might ask, what is a certificate of stock? A certificate of stock is that written instrument, which is actually proof that you are a holder of a share. So, what does Section 6 tell you about the par value of a share, as what we have read earlier on? It says there that the shares issued by a corporation may have a par value or may have no par value. Meaning, the corporation has the liberty to decide whether to give a specific money value to a particular share. If there is a specific value that is fixed for a particular share and is stated in the articles of incorporation and stated in the certificate of stock, then that share has a par value, or that is a par value share. If there is none, then that is a no par value. Now, your section 6 will tell you of a limit of a certain limitation on issuing no par value shares. And what is this limitation? We stated it a while ago. And it says that banks, insurance companies, pre-need companies, loan associations, public utilities, they cannot issue shares that do not have a par value. That is what your Section 6 is telling you. Your Section 6 will also tell you that if the corporation issues preferred shares, these preferred shares must also have a par value. What are preferred shares? You can actually find the description or definition of preferred shares in the next paragraph of Section 6. Let's read the next paragraph. It says, preferred shares of stock issued by a corporation may be given preference in the distribution of dividends and in the distribution of corporate assets in case of liquidation or such other preferences, provided that preferred shares of stock may be issued only with a par value. The board of directors, where authorized in the articles of incorporation, may fix the terms and conditions of preferred shares of stock or any series thereof, provided further that such terms and conditions shall be effective upon filing of a certificate thereof with the Securities and Exchange Commission, hereinafter referred to as the Commission. In that paragraph, it tells you that preferred shares are those shares that are being given a preference in the distribution of dividends or in the distribution of corporate assets if there be liquidation of the corporation. Preference meaning they would be the first to be given dividends or the first to receive a share in the assets, as opposed to the other types of shares. So that's why they are called preferred shares. So in that paragraph, it tells you that if there are preferred shares being issued by the corporation, then they should be issued only with a par value, meaning that there must be a specific money value fixed for preferred shares. And of course, it must be stated in the articles of incorporation and stated in the certificate of stock. Now on to the second to the last paragraph of section 6. You're almost done with section 6. What does this second to the last paragraph say? It says, shares of capital stock issued without par value shall be deemed fully paid and non-assessable, and the holder of such shares shall not be liable to the corporation or to its creditors in respect thereto, provided that no par value shares must be issued for a consideration of at least 5 pesos per share. Provided further that the entire consideration received by the corporation for its no par value shares shall be treated as capital and shall not be available for distribution as dividends. So what should we remember here? We should remember that yes, a corporation can issue no par value shares, and that no par value shares do not have a specific money value that is fixed. However, your section 6 gives you the minimum value for no par value shares, and that it should not be less than 5 pesos. And such that once those shares are being issued and paid for, no part of the amount that was paid for no par value shares can be distributed as dividends, because it shall all be part of your capital, of the capital of the corporation. Finally, the last paragraph of section 6, it states, a corporation may further classify its shares for the purpose of ensuring compliance with constitutional or legal requirements. Now, this just tells you again of the power of the corporation to classify shares, and this time they may do so in compliance with constitutional and legal requirements. As when certain corporations must have 60% ownership of Filipino citizens, or it should have 70% ownership of Filipino citizens, depending on the type of corporation. So that ends our discussion on Section 5 and Section 6 of your revised corporation code. I hope I was able to simplify the concepts under Section 5 and Section 6. See you next time in my next video. I hope you have learned something from this video. If you have, please click like, subscribe, and that notification bell so that you will be notified of new video uploads. Thank you for watching. See you next time in MBL Classroom.